yeah, I'm doing this because I want to make a living out of this. I actually know the business side of video and editing and shooting, audio, all that stuff.
Deep beside me, I'm fading to black, I'm fading. Took an oath by the blood in my hand, won't break it. I can taste it, the end is upon us, I swear. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it!
Ever since I was born, I was literally in front of a camera. Like, literally, I was born in front of a camera. My father filmed my birth. He was there in the hospital with my mom. And this would continue as I was a kid. He was filming me sleeping or any activities we would do together, anything I would do with my mom, birthday parties, when we would go on vacation, family events. Yeah, this pretty much continued the first 6 years of my life while my father was around. So he left around the time I was 6. It was tough for me to adjust to not having a camera on me all the time and not having home videos to watch all the time. And it was tough adjusting to that. I did have a camera around 5th grade. I don't have a lot of those videos outside of my elementary school graduation. Throughout middle school, I didn't really have the camera. Once I hit 8th grade, it was my senior year of middle school. I was on the verge of graduating middle school and I wanted a camera. That was like the one graduation gift I wanted. And I would take my old tapes from 5th grade to Circuit City. I would just sit there every day after school and watch my old home videos on the TVs that they would use to display the cameras. I even made friends with the sales associate. I'm pretty sure he was relieved by the time I finally purchased the camera. I was so excited because I finally had the camera and I was able to go out and record with my friends, whether we were hanging out at the park or running around in Times Square. It was just a lot of fun to finally have that, but it wasn't really on my father's terms, where he was the one filming me all the time. It was me having the chance to film myself and have fun. I went into high school and I had a group of friends. We were known as the Stadivision crew. We would film ourselves all the time hanging out, and in the summer, my goal was to get us on public access. I was heavily inspired by Wayne's World, which was one of my favorite movies growing up, and their show was a public access show. And around that time, Jackass and a lot of these shows where people were out in the streets, like just messing around and having fun, and I wanted to put that out there. I had 2 VCRs and I would literally sit there for hours editing. I had a VHS which was the Best of Ronnie, but I wanted to host in between them, which was similar to what my father did in the home videos that I received from him, where he's in between introducing it and saying, okay, well, this was on such and such date and this is where we are and this is what we're doing. I was doing this on my own years prior to having those tapes at my disposal, so I never knew that we were both doing that. And I would literally have one tape, record myself introducing what was coming up, shut the camera off, put the tape in, re-record, here you go. And then it would cut to me in Times Square and then come back to me hosting. I mean, I didn't know it in my mind that I was editing. I just thought it was just me putting them together, and I always had a passion for that. So from there, I was able to get the show Stadivision on public access.
What up, this is J.R. Scar. This is our first episode of Stadivision. I'm your host.
It was such a cool moment to see my friends and I on TV just having fun. But unfortunately, along with the Stadivision was a lot of controversy where I was kicked out of school just for pictures I made on the internet. I never saw it as a potential career. I always just saw it as something I did for fun. The internet was still pretty fresh. This would have been the early 2000s, so it was like, you gotta do something with computers or web pages or internet. Yeah, I was always down for it. I was like, yeah, I want to do something with computers. I love technology. Not once did it ever cross my mind like, hey, maybe there's a career in this. I think I was still pretty young at the time, would have been 16. Wrestling did play a huge part in my passion for film. And then I think it was the videos that WWE would produce, whether it was the Tell Me Alive video for Shawn Michaels or the WrestleMania 17 video package with My Way for The Rock and Stone Cold. I remember just feeling emotionally attached to those videos and the stories that they told, and subliminally I think that was always the inspiration for my passion for production. In the fall of 2003, my friends and I, we started wrestling in the park, just doing backyard wrestling, not as dangerous as the cliche backyard wrestling, but I mean, we kept it safe, we had storylines, we tried to keep it entertaining. And I was taken to the Smith Recreation Center and introduced to Corey. It was more like, hey, let's go, let's put some music on the videos and let's put our names on the bottom, and pretty simple editing. And it wasn't meant to be anything crazy. It was just meant to like, hey, let's just take advantage of these computers and let's put our videos on there and we'll take it from there. Corey at the time was teaching video classes, and in order for her to prove to her supervisors that she was getting work done, she needed to have work to show of the teens and the after-school kids working on projects. She suggested, hey, you guys can continue coming here to work on your wrestling tapes, but we also need to work on a project. Let's come up with a story, like a short movie that we can all do that's fun, and we'll take it from there. We'll write the script, we'll shoot it, and we'll edit it. So we came up with a spoof on The Matrix called Don't Get Caught in the Matrix While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood. I actually hadn't seen the Matrix movie prior to that, so I was just coming up with stuff of my own, and I was Agent Bosch playing the role of Agent Smith in the movie. I enjoyed the acting part, I enjoyed shooting. Corey told us it was time to edit. For some reason, I was really scared to edit. I was really intimidated by Final Cut Pro, and I literally would cut school every day, but I would show up after school every day and edit. But when it came time to putting it together, everybody kind of bailed, and I was stuck putting most of the movie together myself, which I actually didn't mind, and I actually was happy that I was able to take creative control of the film.
Because you are the one. Whoa, this isn't working for me. It'll do.
And I was so excited when we finally premiered it to our families, and I think it was from there that my mom discovered the passion that I had for video. And I think Corey was able to see that as well, where I really was passionate about editing and doing this. She was starting a summer class. Besides myself, the only other person that was really into production was Eli. I would say we were a good team because we complemented each other well, where I was pretty straightforward. Eli was very experimental, and I always respected that about him because he wasn't afraid to take chances. So we were taken on as Corey's 2 star students, and we were assistant teachers for the summer class for the new recreation center that opened in Chelsea. And this would be known as CTV's, Chelsea Teen Video. There were a lot of great students, and they were more focused on what we wanted to accomplish. It was great to have a group of teens that were actually motivated. We wanted to do a documentary on street performers called Stage Change, where we would go around the city, whether it's the train stations, Times Square, and interviewing different street performers and kind of just getting their story, how they survive, how they make a living, do they have other professions. Working on that documentary really inspired me because around this time, my uncle got in contact with my mom just to kind of reconnect with the family. This was my father's brother, and I asked him, hey, do you have all of my home videos from when I was a kid? So I asked him, if you're ever in New York, do you mind bringing them for me? He was a truck driver, so he would travel from Miami to New Jersey on a weekly basis. So he stopped by and he bought me a stack of videos that my father left behind. So it was from there that I was inspired to begin working on my documentary called Closing the Chapter, based on my relationship with my father. And this was tough for me because prior to that, I never really opened up about my relationship with my father, like unless it was really close friends or people that I truly trusted. I began working on this documentary, and I knew obviously it would be interview driven by myself, and I would interview my family as well. So I did interview my mother, my stepfather Ray, my grandmother, my little sister, both my uncles on my mother and my father's side, because they were around when a lot of this happened, and they might even be able to provide information that I didn't know or didn't remember. During this time, after the summer program, Corey really wanted to hire Eli and I to help teach during the school year. There wasn't a position really open for it. We were kind of just brought in as office machine aides. This was like my first real job, and I was pretty much told, hey, once you graduate high school, we can double your pay. I was not graduating anytime soon if I stayed in school. think I was like 20 something credits behind, and I was already 17 going on 18, and probably would have been stuck there till I was 20 or 21. So I made the decision to drop out of high school and get my GED, which some people may not have understood. And ironically, I had a lot of friends that were still in high school that were quick to judge me and tell me, you're making a bad decision, you're gonna ruin your life doing this, and you're screwing up, and just stay in school and you'll graduate. And I think a lot of people didn't understand why I made the choice that I made, but it was the right choice, and I was able to get my GED within a month, literally. I went in, I took the placement test, I got a perfect score. I was always told I was smart, but I think I chose to be lazy, I chose to not do the work, and I chose to just focus on hanging out and having fun. And me getting a perfect score kind of solidified, oh no, you're smart, you're just a dumbass because you didn't apply yourself. I remember taking the first practice test and scoring extremely high, where like I remember them calling me, and like I was worried. I was like, did I fail? Did I do like really, really bad on the test? And they actually told me, no, you scored one of the highest scores we've ever seen, which was like a 3,300. So I finally took the real test. I scored a little over 3,000 and was able to graduate in the spring of 2005. I was able to get that promotion, and I was making about $12, $13 an hour. For an 18-year-old in 2005, I was balling. I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have bills to pay. I pretty much had food here whenever I needed it. So I was just paying for food outside and going out with friends and buying myself wrestling stuff. I was living the life. I was helping Corey teach with the after school kids. I never had that opportunity when I was younger. I kind of stumbled into this program, whereas I was happy to help like these kids that were starting off at a younger age, whether it was from kindergarten to middle school age. We would do little goofy projects for the holidays, whether it was for Halloween, dressing up as zombies or creating little graveyards. We did a music video for 1-2-Step, which was choreographed, and I was really excited to work on green screen and had a little cameo in the beginning of the video. We started the teen program in the fall of 2004. It was a group of kids that was brought in from Urban Assembly Media High School. Corey was friends with one of the teachers in the school, and she brought them all in. It was a great group of kids. They were extremely funny. I was their teacher, but I was so close to their age, where I was only 3-4 years older than them, that they kind of looked up to me in a way, but they also saw me as one of their peers, which was tough for me because I saw them as my peers because we were so close in age, so I was able to relate to a lot of them, whereas I didn't really see myself as an authority figure to teenagers. We shot a film, which is still pretty topical today, on gun violence, where a kid is being bullied in school and rejected and treated like shit.
Okay, guys, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, no, guys, please, I'm new here.
And comes back and shoots the school.
Yo.
And then we kind of rewind where we go back, and this is how it could have been handled, and it wouldn't have resulted in the violence, where we are nice to him and we're not being douchebags.
Hey, my girl told me about you. She said you're a good kid.
So as Corey and I were developing the Rec Youth program, we were also branching out and teaching a lot of the computer room teachers in the other rec centers throughout the city, which was weird for me because a lot of them were in maybe their 30s or 40s, and I'm an 18-year-old kid teaching these adults how to do things that have been working in the rec centers for years. I was happy that they all looked at me as Corey's protege and didn't just see me as some kid, and really respected what I had to teach them and show them. Working in the rec center and being as young as I was, as you can expect, things will happen. And there was one girl that would continually flirt with me whenever I was around in the rec center. The girl finally had the courage to come up to me after I cut my hair and ask me, hey, why'd you cut your hair? And she would flirt with me from time to time, and then we began dating. Corey wasn't really thrilled with it. I don't really think she got a good vibe from it, or at least a lot of the things I was telling her and just from seeing her around in the rec center. So she was able to kind of see through what was going on. I think it began distracting me, where I wasn't really getting my work done, and I would have classes where she would be there and distracting me, and I'm flirting while I'm supposed to be teaching, or taking advantage when Corey wasn't around. Like, there were incidents where I'd be waiting for her in her friend's lobby, and the police would approach me and ask me what I'm doing, and they'd have me against a wall in the project searching me up, seeing if I had drugs or weapons on me, and I'd tell them, no, I'm just here, I'm waiting for my girlfriend, I'm not doing anything wrong. I work across the street for the city at the parks department, teaching kids and teaching classes. Once when we were walking to the train, and a group of people that didn't like her followed us to the train, and they were gonna jump us. Some of the students from the teen program and the CTV program were in the train with us. The last thing I needed was any of these kids getting involved in my drama or getting hurt. As things were getting more serious in my relationship, I felt like Corey and I were not really drifting apart yet as kind of mentor-mentee. We were also really good friends. Like, you almost couldn't tell that I was 10 years younger. I think for a long time I kind of felt like a lot of my friends were immature, and I had fun, but there were times where I felt like I was too mature for them. As the summer was approaching, we had a small festival a year prior where I won an award for a little montage video I've made of my home videos prior to working on my documentary. The goal for the year was always to get Closing the Chapter into the Rec Youth Film Festival in 2005. I did a lot of the shooting with my own family, but Corey did go out of her way to film me, recording me, asking me the questions I needed to be asked. Back in December, we did a little mini showcase, and I did show the first few minutes of my documentary. It might have been maybe like the first 4 or 5 minutes, the intro and the opening credits. By the time the following summer came, that was still all I had for my film, where I hadn't really worked much on it in a few months because I was so distracted. Corey pretty much said, hey, do you want this film in the festival? Yes or no? You started working hard on this, you haven't really done much. Do you want this in the festival? And I said, yes, I do. I want to tell my story. This is what I want. She literally had me stay in her apartment for a week to finish this documentary. She did not let me leave until this film was done. She believed in me that much that she wanted it done for the festival. And I did finish it. I was really happy with the way it was received at the festival. I remember being extremely nervous, especially during the part where I was speaking about my father and why he was locked up.
He called me around my 13th birthday. The first thing I asked him was, where you been? How come you don't call no more? You don't send letters, nothing like that. He was like, that he'd been locked up for about 1.5 years now for being accused of molesting a little girl.
And I just remember kind of like looking around in the crowd and trying to hear any reactions. And like, I remember getting a huge ovation when the documentary was finished and there was an award for Best Documentary. I didn't want to go in there with a huge ego and automatically assume, oh, I'm going to win Best Documentary. There were a few other documentaries that were really well done.
And the award for Best Documentary goes to Closing the Chapter by Ronnie Bosch.
When I did win it, I was pleasantly surprised. I went up there, I was kind of nervous. I really didn't know what to say. I'd never really won an award before or had to give a speech. It was a huge accomplishment.
I was going to thank everybody that kept pushing me over the past couple months to finish this documentary and wouldn't leave me alone until I got it done.
In the summer of 2005, I found out that my girlfriend was pregnant and that I was going to be a father, which was pretty ironic. As I was finishing this documentary about my father, by the time my documentary finally showed in the festival, I knew I was going to be a father, and that was the first time a lot of people did. I mean, my family knew, and a few people knew, but as far as like announcing it in the credits, it was pretty surreal. And Corey and Madi, who was Corey's boss and also my boss, they really put their name on the line for me. Corey felt that I was ready to go out on my own and start teaching my own video classes. And there were a group of guys, Jonathan and Janavi from the Bronx, kind of came up like me. We were about the same age, and they filmed a narrative film called Remorse, and I think it was just done on like a regular little camera. Like, it wasn't even the kind of equipment that we had, but they were working out of the St. Mary's Rec Center in the Bronx and using their equipment to edit. And I remember being really impressed, like, oh my God, these guys are awesome. I would love to work with them. So when Corey made the suggestion for me to work in the Bronx, I was all for it. I said, yeah, I'm down. I want to work with Jonathan and Janavi. But what I didn't realize is that as I was being transferred over to the Bronx, Jonathan and Janavi were being brought in to Chelsea. She saw in them what she saw in me, and I mean, I see it as well. They're both extremely talented. And I think I was a little bummed out because I wanted to work with them and I didn't get the chance to. And I was between the Bronx and Smith. And Smith wasn't too bad because I was already familiar with a lot of the people there. But it was tough because I didn't have Corey there by my side helping me. And not that I really needed the help as far as like working or video or production or anything like that, but just having like the support of Corey, and I looked up to her. And at the same time, I was thrown into the Bronx as a computer instructor without the resources to the video equipment, so I really wasn't teaching video classes, and I was expected to. The staff there was not cooperating with me as far as bringing the kids into me to teach the classes. Next thing I know, I'm given a curriculum to teach welfare recipients job search classes, which I mean, I pretty much was given this job coming in as a student and being hired within less than a year. I felt terrible because I knew I couldn't give these people what they needed, but at the same time, I couldn't say, oh no, I'm not going to teach this. I don't want to do this. It was my job. Not that I didn't want to, that wasn't what I was there for. I was having a little bit more luck in Smith. It reached the point where Corey was popping up and surprising me at the rec centers to see if I was getting any work done, because I had nothing to show when we would have our meetings with all of the rec centers. And I kind of sat there like, oh no, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. They kept giving me warnings like, hey, you've got to produce something. We're paying you and you're not producing anything. I was sitting in the computer room on MySpace at the time, not getting anything done, listening to music. I think she was extremely disappointed, and I don't blame her at all. And looking back, I'm disappointed that I let my personal problems overtake what I was going through at work. As the personal problems got worse, I was doing less and less, and I was just showing up to work and sitting there for 8 hours until it was time to go home. There were times where I would show up late and leave early if nobody was around and just lock up the computer room and leave. If I was in Smith, I was hanging out with my friends. Corey kind of left it on me to recruit and pretty much do the work we did a year prior, finding teens, where Corey did a great job at finding a nice group of kids, and we would go outside and hand out flyers. I pretty much told like 5, 6, 7 of my friends, hey, just come through every Thursday and just show up to my class. It's only an hour. I need to show that I'm doing something and just bullshit our way through this so I don't get fired, because it was at the point where I was fearing my job. We did a few exercises. We started working on a documentary about sexuality, and that also didn't go anywhere. We got a bunch of interviews done. Once again, Corey would pop up, and she kind of noticed it was my friends and we weren't really doing much. She kind of caught onto the gig and brought me back to Chelsea, where she was able to keep a closer eye on me. In 2006, my daughter Natalie was born. A lot of the drama that I was going through really hit its peak. My focus should have been to keep my job. At least now I had somebody else depending on me. And I think I was so distracted and so distraught with everything that was going on. Natalie's mother would call me and say, hey, my mom's at your job with the police, threatening Corey. Not only was I not producing anything, but now I was bringing all of my outside drama with me to work, and you're threatening my boss, and you're showing up in my job where all these people know me, and you're embarrassing me and falsely accusing me of things that I'm not doing. And Corey and Madi would warn me all the time, like, hey, get your shit together, get your shit together. You're the only one that's not producing anything, but you're the most experienced in this field. The instructors in the Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx are getting things done, and they don't have an ounce of the skill that you do in production. And it was like, look, I'm sorry, I'm not getting anything done. They're not cooperating. I was coming up with excuses and blaming everybody else for why I wasn't getting work done. And regardless of what I was going through in my personal life, that should have motivated me to even more to get shit done. And it finally reached the boiling point. It's probably the worst week of my life, honestly. I was kicked out of my house. A week later, Corey and Madi pulled me aside, and they pretty much told me, look, we don't want to do this. We love you, but we have to let you go. You're not accomplishing anything, and you're not getting anything done. And gave me the option of voluntarily resigning so it wouldn't go in my record as me being fired, which I'm grateful for, and I love them to death. And to this day, I don't blame them. If anything, I'm grateful that they kept me as long as they did, because I didn't deserve it. And I just remember those 2 weeks just like showing up, not doing anything. And I just remember my last day. It was at Smith. And I think it might have been like halfway through my shift where I just got up and walked away and left. And it wasn't easy, because being so young, I I think I took it for granted. I definitely took it for granted. Corey took me under her wing and pretty much handed me this job on a silver platter. I'm not saying I didn't work hard, but I think a lot of it, I got it all so fast. I was under the impression, no, Corey and Madi, they love me. They're never gonna get rid of me. I'm their friend. I don't think I was mature enough to understand, no matter how much they love me or care about me as a person, as a friend, they can't jeopardize their living for me. And they already put their name on the line for me to hire me and bring me on full time and give me an amazing opportunity at such a young age. I never held a resentment towards Corey and Madi. If anything, I've always held a resentment towards myself as to why I couldn't just get my shit together and why I couldn't do what I needed to do with this great opportunity that I had at such an early age. A lot of times I wondered, what if I had just tried? What if I had not worried about my baby mama drama or all this nonsense that was going on, or partying at the time I started partying a lot? What if I had just focused on doing what I needed to do for Natalie, for myself, for my career? During this time I was looking into college. I wanted to get my degree in production, and I remember looking at BMCC because I heard a few people going there, and it was Bernadette, who was also one of the coordinators at the Smith Rec Center, who told me, no, you're too good for BMCC. Look into Brooklyn College. They have an amazing film program. I think since everything happened so quick, where I found out that I was going to be a father at the same time that I was getting my GED, that kind of halted what I was going to do, which was, my plan was right after my GED, I was going to start college that fall. I had the grades to get into Brooklyn College. I saw myself doing this as a career. About a month later, we had the 3rd annual Rec Youth Film Festival, and this was in a bigger theater now in Chelsea. And Rec Youth had grown to something so big. I felt like I was such a big part of helping Corey get that started, and then seeing what it became, and it broke my heart that I was no longer part of it. Prior to this, I met my current girlfriend, April. She met me right before I got fired, and she knew my passion for video. She knew my passion for film. One of our first dates was the DocuJam, where they showed my documentary. She's also in the arts, so I think she admired that about me. And we went to the Rec Youth Film Festival together, and this was also kind of me showing Corey, like, hey, look, I met somebody better, somebody that wants the best for me. I just remember sitting there in the audience, and I got an award for a music video I did with the Smith After School, and I just remember going up there to get it and just not feeling anything. And like, I'll never forget leaving that day, and like I think a lot of people were happy to see me, and I was happy to see them as well. I lost that love and I lost that passion. A year earlier, I was getting an award for a documentary that I worked my ass off. And I remember going home, and might have been the first time I even cried in front of April, where she saw like how much it broke my heart to be there and not be a part of it. Like, I remember just feeling like there's no future in this anymore. I lost it all. I had it and I lost it. I have this situation going on. I can't start college. I didn't have it in me anymore. I wasn't employed anymore. I didn't have a job until the following winter, and Natalie was already a year old. I was unemployed. I think deep down I wanted it, but I didn't believe in myself enough to pursue it. About 6-7 months after I was fired from Rec Youth, I got my security license and I started doing security. I was bored out of my fucking mind, to be honest. I was in a security booth at a construction site for a hotel on the Lower East Side, so it was pretty convenient. The shift that I had was 3 to 11, and usually by 6, all of the construction workers were gone. I was able to leave, go to my friend's house a few blocks away. I'd go visit April, have people come over and hang out with me at the hotel, and Like, we'd run around and we'd drink. I had no respect for my job. I wasn't happy. I was miserable, and I needed to make the best out of that situation. While I was working security, this job was convenient. I was able to take advantage and get work done on my laptop. I was also working on a few side projects at this time. Jonathan and Janavi started working on their own production. I helped them shoot a few music videos in the summer. Also, I was able to work on a project with Corey, and I met a friend of hers named Matt Mason. Matt and I hit it off right away. He wrote a book called The Pirate's Dilemma about piracy, and we helped shoot a few commercials for it, and I even appeared in one of them.
These guys are gonna go crazy.
When I was at Smith, there was a lot of street basketball players that would come to the rec center, and one guy would always have me helping him out with videos for Bone Collector Homicide. I went and shot a game upstate for Bone Collector. It was a celebrity basketball game, and we kind of bumped into each other once when I was doing the security. His name was Jay. He would come and bring his laptop over, and we'd work on the basketball videos. And one time he kind of just went off on me because I was checking my Facebook and started yelling at me, and I just felt really uncomfortable about the whole situation, and I pretty much blocked him off and never had contact with him again. Also, there was an incident a year prior where he thought Eli was stealing his footage and ran up on Eli and took his hard drive and took it home to check if there was anything on it, and then dropped it off here with me. And I was not happy about that situation, especially with somebody like Eli who would never do something like that. He never paid me. Only 2 times I was ever paid for any of that work that was by Bone Collector and Homicide, when I would go out of my way to shoot for them. They personally paid me, but Jay never fucking paid me. And I never saw any of this footage. There's a little bit of it on YouTube, but I've never seen any of this footage. I've never been able to use any of it for my reel. While I was working at the construction site, April actually had a video project she needed to do for school. I can help, let's do this. We can shoot this at the hotel and nobody's there, and we had a 30-floor hotel at our disposal, and we shot this pretty cool little thing where I'm just like wandering around the hotel lost, and like it ends with me, or it looks like I'm jumping off the building, but it's really the empty pool, and I'm just ducking down under the camera. It was a lot of fun, especially working with somebody that I love so much on a project like that. I worked with Eli a few times. He was shooting his own project, Pain Like Caesar. It was supposed to be like a little mini series, and he was really passionate about it. And I think that seeing Eli's passion always rubbed up on me, where it was like, okay, he's passionate about this, I'm in it with him. I want to work with him. And I would act in some of his films, help him edit. We did one film where it was Pichon and I, and we shot a scene in the staircase of his building.
So how old is the son?
16.
The fuck?
What's wrong?
I don't do kids.
So I'll do it.
Come on, man. You can't go through with this. The mom and the dad is one thing. The kid, he don't know any better. He still got Similac in his breath.
Too bad.
Fuck this shit. Nobody told me anything about kids.
Next time, listen.
Now I'm through here. I can't go through with this.
You're not leaving me to do this shit by myself.
I'm through here. I'll see you back in the office.
And then later on, the two of us would shoot with our friend Danny, and we shot a scene for Danny's class. So we were kind of looking out for each other, acting in each other's films.
No, I don't think you understand. No popping, no trigger happy, no slipping with the fingers, none of that.
All right.
No, do you understand me?
Yes.
No, do you promise?
I promise.
Working with Eli during that time was one of the few things that at least kept that little bit of hope and passion for me in film. Like, I was doing the security thing, and eventually I lost that job as well because I was not at the site. Around this time, April would come to me and, you should look into starting college. Go look into Brooklyn College. You can get in. You're going to do great. And for a long time, I was really resistant. I did terrible in high school. I had this job in film. I fucked it up. I lost it. I didn't take care of it, and I failed at that. I failed at school. I'm failing at everything. Why am I gonna set myself up to start college and fail at that as well? And I saw myself as a failure. In the fall of 2007, I started at Brooklyn College. So going into college, I really didn't know what to expect. I was scared because I wasn't the greatest student in high school. I was coming into college as a father, so I couldn't really enjoy that college lifestyle. Like, I wasn't going to be living in a dorm. I wasn't going to be in a fraternity. I wanted to get my diploma and get a job in the industry, and that was it. My first film in college was in my freshman year for Production 1. We were shooting a silent film on a Super 8 camera. It was in black and white, so it was a lot of new elements that I wasn't really used to. I was used to digital, I was used to dialogue and audio and color and being able to edit on Final Cut Pro. So I decided for my first project, I wanted to tell my story. which was kind of like what I went through 2 years prior with Natalie and her mother. I had Eli playing the main role just because I trusted him and he was familiar with my situation. I knew I'd be able to get out of him what I needed. I actually had another ex-girlfriend of mine from high school that I recently reconnected with, Tanisha. We hadn't spoken for a few years and found each other through social media, and ironically enough, she was in NYU for film. So it was pretty funny that we ended up in the same field. I had one of Natalie's dolls play the role of Natalie. And this was interesting for me because it was my first time having to pitch a story to a professor in a class. And I think it was tough for them to understand my situation, but I was speaking from experience and I was very passionate about telling this story. And at first my professor was pretty resistant to it, where he kept telling me, no, I don't think this is a good story to tell for this project. Maybe in one of your future classes where you have digital and audio and are able to tell that story better. And I said, no, I visualized it on my first day of class, where my relationship was based heavily in dialogue and insult. I thought I can tell this story just with emotion, facial expressions. This is the story I'm telling. This is how I want to tell it, and I can tell it without saying a single word. I remember bringing the footage to class and everybody just hating the character of Natalie's mother, which was the emotion I was trying to get out of it, where they're sympathizing for the father. And this was special to me because it was my first chance to tell my story in a narrative way and in a creative way, in an artistic way. I was very happy that my professor kind of admitted, look, I was wrong, and you did an amazing job. And he even brought me back to show the film to his class for the following 3 semesters while he was still at Brooklyn College. He would always admit, I didn't believe in this project at first. Ron proved me wrong, which was amazing. And I always felt great about this project. I would say out of my time in college, this was probably the most special project because it was my first one and it was my first time putting myself out there in almost 2 years since losing it all. For production 2, it was going to be a little more advanced and we'd be working in a group of 4 rather than working solo on our projects. I met Andre in production 1 and I thought he was a great cinematographer, where I felt that I lacked in that area and I was a better editor. So I thought we'd make a great team. And I also met John and Brandon. We saw that neither of them had a group and we kind of just formed together. That was an interesting semester, to say the least. It was my first time really working in a group like that, and I think I quickly realized during one of our first shoots that this might not be the best combination. We really bumped heads a lot. I think we were both pretty stubborn. He wanted to do all these shots that were creative, and it's like, hey, let me shoot from down here. Okay, a lot of these shots aren't really necessary. Let's get what we need to get done for our project. I understand wanting to be creative and experiment. We're paying for this film. It's expensive. Not all of us have the same money that you do. We kept bumping heads, and I think he would come up with a lot of story ideas for our group. Oh, he's talking to a plant and all these things, and I was like, what? The first time we shot, it was a couple and then there's a third person involved, and we ended up reshooting it again with John, pretty much the same roles, because the footage with Eli never came out. And then from there, when we started working on film, it was pretty much one day set for all of the groups to shoot their film stuff, and our group was split into 2 subgroups where it was Andre and I and Brandon and John. Unfortunately for Brandon and John, they kind of got the worst end of Andre and I's issues, and a lot of the time all the hours and all the work would go into Andre and I getting our stuff done because we can never get it done, or like he would take forever to do his shots, and it left like a little bit of time for Brandon and John, and they ended up suffering from it. We shot on campus. It was 2 films, and they're fighting over a pair of panties that belong to Joanna, and she finds them fighting, grabs the panties and walks away. From there we had to recreate a scene from a film. Andre chose the movie Meet Bill. I've never seen the movie, but there was a tent scene with 4 people, and I just remember we had to spend a ton of money to redo the set and do the lighting, and we rented out a studio and spent a shitload of money on the film. And we shot with Danny from Billing Mike Simpson. We were only able to shoot the master shot on the first day, so we did all these hours of work and only did 1 shot, and we ended up having to finish the shoot in school, and we rented out one of the classrooms for the night and had to rebuild the entire set. Danny had car trouble, and I actually had to fill in for Danny. I'm maybe about a foot taller than Danny, and I had this big beard, and he was clean shaven, so I had to run to Target, buy the khakis and the blue shirt, buy scissors because my beard was so long that I couldn't shave it with a regular razor. I had to shave in the bathroom at school, where one of the professors walked in and saw me shaving. I'm like, hey, it's for a film. It's for a film, professor. I gotta do it. Once again, it left only a few hours, maybe by like 5 in the morning, we were ready to shoot John and Brandon's film, and theirs didn't come out as good. At the same time, we also shot a film with dialogue. The basis of the scene was this guy is directing a porn film to help pay for an engagement ring for his girlfriend. We finished our audition. My girlfriend finds the ad for the porn and shows up to audition to surprise me, and I'm just like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. The climax is she slaps the shit out of me, and I remember when we first shot it, it was more like a tap, and I was like, you've got to make it look real if we're gonna make this look good. And I told her, think of your ex-boyfriend. So she goes and wails and slaps the shit out of me, and everybody starts laughing, and I'm like, the split second she's reacting, and I'm like, oh fuck. I hear them laugh, and I just get up and I storm out, and I'm like, I gotta finish the scene because I'm not going to have her slap me again. And luckily I was able to cut it out in post. So then finally, at the end of the semester, ironically, when the class started, Andre was the only person I knew. By the time the semester ended on finals day, he was the only one I wasn't speaking to, and I was friends with everybody in the class. I was working in the equipment room at the time, so I got to know everybody in the department, and I thought that helped me like really get to know people and get to understand the equipment. For another class, I was able to take on the responsibility once again and working on my own. He didn't really want us using each other as actors in our films, so we went to a studio where we had an audition, we did a casting call, we had a bunch of actors come in, try out. We told the actors the premise of the scene and they would improvise. So I remember my scene was, I wanted my character to have an addiction, but not a drug addiction or something physical where the roommate can tell, so I made him have a gambling addiction. I had a few people audition, but it was like 2 standouts that really knocked it out of the park. Andrew Davies and Philip Lakin, really nice guys, extremely talented. I just remember being blown away by these 2 where it was like, oh my god, these guys did this perfect scene on the spot. The purpose of the project was to have the actors improvise and build the story and build the script from there. From the moment I saw them act this scene out, I was like, no, I want you 2 guys, you're my guys. And we met up a few times. Then we finally shot it at my friend's house. So I thought that was the perfect setting for this film. This is like a dude's apartment. Like 2 dudes live here. And they were a pleasure to work with. No ego whatsoever.
If you don't really have a girlfriend, then where's all my money been going?
I've been gambling.
What?
I know, man, I fucked up real bad.
You're damn right you fucked up.
The semester prior, I was in the process of moving out, and I stumbled across my middle school yearbook, and I saw in there a signature from my performing arts teacher, Miss Hassan. She said, don't forget The Rock. I did my 8th grade art project acting as The Rock. When I first went up there and tried it, didn't have any personality whatsoever, and she kind of pulled that out of me where it's like, no, you need to be The Rock. You need to be strong and have a presence. I also remember being 12 or 13 at the time, and she mentioned that she had a comedy show with her husband, and I remember asking, oh, can I see it? She was like, no, you're too young. I looked her up. I looked up Hassan Comedy, and I stumbled across this show called The Black and the Jew Comedy Hour, and I opened up the site, and it was her and her husband Epstein, and they had a podcast at the time, or it was like a radio show similar to Howard Stern, and I checked it out, and I was like, oh, this is pretty funny and raunchy. I can see why she didn't want me to see it at 12 years old. I went to one of her shows. I actually reached out via email and said, hey, I'm a former student of Hassan. I'm going to your show this weekend. Just wanted to say hi to her after the show. They're very interactive with their audience. They like to pick on the audience, and based on race and sex and politics and sexuality. I was in the front row and they kept picking on me, and they asked me my nationality. I said I'm Cuban. And at the end of the show, they like to go around and talk to the audience. Halfway through, Epstein says, we have a student here of Hassan from a decade ago. If the student is here, will you stand up? And I stood up, and I just remember Hassan going, you? And Epstein's like, the Cuban, that's your student, Hassan. They invited me onto their radio show a few times.
Yeah. Please welcome young, handsome Cuban, Ronnie Bausch.
Yeah.
Ronnie is filming us today for a project that he's doing, and Ronnie, he's a young Cuban. Look at him, check him out.
I decided to take a documentary class, and I knew right away that I wanted to tell Epstein and Hassan's story. They've been married for 25 years at the time. And I just thought they had a great story to tell. So right away I asked them and I said, hey, I would love to shoot a little 10-minute documentary on you guys. I think you guys have an awesome story. I interviewed them. I filmed one of their shows.
But then I found this photo and I said, you know why I like black girls? My mother dressed me in Nation of Islam clothing. bow tie, look at the processed hair. No other Jew had this look. None.
And look at this little black girl, okay? How comfortable was I holding a white ball?
They recently extended the age for summer youth employment to, I think, 23 or 24, which I was 23 at the time. So I thought, what the hell, I'll sign up. I need a summer job. Not the most money, but it was better than nothing. So I was selected through the lottery. I found DCTV, which was where I submitted my film for DocuJam in 2006. They were similar to Rec Youth as far as like having, it was nonprofit, teenagers, especially like in the urban parts of the city, were coming in and learning production. So I signed up. I said, hey, look, I have experience. I'm in college. I've actually had films in your festival a few years ago. Can I sign up and work here this summer? There were a bunch of teenagers in that group. I felt really uncomfortable when I first came in. A lot of these kids were about 15, 16, and I was already 23. I sensed it that first day where everybody was looking at me like, who is this old guy? He's one of us. He's summer youth. How old is this guy? He's like 30. That was really awkward for me at the time, and I remember going to the director of the program and saying, hey, look, I know these kids are here to learn, and I already know all this stuff. Like, is there a way I can just be like an assistant teacher to you guys or do something? Like, I'm not learning this stuff from scratch. I'm in school. This was the only place I really wanted to work. And they pretty much said, if you want, you can shoot like a behind the scenes documentary on their projects, and we'll take it from there and you can work on that, which I thought was great because I really didn't want to be seen as one of the other kids. It reminded me of what I had at Rec Youth with the after school kids, and I thought it was great to see these kids learn from scratch and seeing them be creative and come up with these films. I even acted in one of them as once again as a bully in a school shooting film. That seems to be my role in every film I'm in, is I'm the bully that gets shot. I think that was the spark that I needed to bring back that passion, because yeah, I was doing it in school, I was going through the motions, but I felt like that was what brought it back for me, where I was like, no, you still got it. I was living with my roommate. I don't know if they saw it as I was going to be partying more, but I think living there, I kind of started separating myself from that lifestyle and focusing more on school. As my time in Brooklyn College was coming to an end, it was time for my senior thesis project. I chose to do a narrative, and this would be a lot more advanced with a crew, audio equipment, lighting equipment, everything that I needed. I would take a few days to shoot this. This would be spread along 3 semesters, writing, production, post-production. I knew I wanted to tell my story, but my story was no longer my ex, and I wanted to find a way to tell the story of my struggle that I was going through now as a single father. During this time, I was on food stamps and welfare and public assistance, and I remember sitting in the welfare office, and I was like, how did I get to this point? I never wanted that to be my way out. I always saw that as like a temporary solution while I was in school, and my goal was always like, I can't wait for the day I no longer qualify for welfare. My story started coming to me where it was like, okay, this father, he's struggling. He's on his own. He doesn't have the help that he needs. I didn't want to use the welfare or the food stamps or anything like that. So I kind of came up with this story where he was on his own. He's looking for a job. He's trying to keep it all together for his daughter. He goes for a job interview. He doesn't get the job. He comes home. He notices an eviction notice on his door. Kind of like Corey, where she kept giving me slack and kept looking out for me because she did care about me. The superintendent is kind of like, look, I've cut you so much slack and I've let you live here this long because of Natalie, but I can't keep covering for you. You haven't been paying your rent. And he's like begging and pleading, and he goes outside and he encounters the local drug dealer, and he's asking him, hey, can I assist you? Can I help sell for you? I need the fucking money. I need it. And the drug dealer kind of brushes him off, and he reaches this low point where he's so desperate that he's going to go as far as to break into the drug dealer's apartment and steal any money or jewelry or anything he can find just to pay the rent. He needs to do it for his daughter, and I had Natalie playing the role of the daughter. He goes up there, the drug dealer finds him, they have a altercation in the hallway where they're fighting over the gun. The gun goes off, and then it cuts to Natalie in school being picked up by Children's Services, ACS, or whatever you want to call it. Whether the father was killed or killed the drug dealer and ended up in prison, both scenarios resulted in hurting his daughter. I feel like where Deadbeat had that happy ending where it was him and his daughter, this one was a little darker. Once I was done writing the film, I had to put a crew together. So I was pretty happy with my crew. It was all classmates, of course. Luckily, I had the experience casting from Deadly Game. Had no money to pay anybody. I barely had money to take care of the production cost, which was probably over $1,000, which I didn't really have at the time. Luckily, between food stamps and tax return. I managed to pull it off, and April and her parents helping me a great deal. I found an actor through an acting website named Giovanni. I was able to sense that passion that I was looking for in my character. He and I hit it off right away. He was also Cuban. I knew right away I wanted Natalie to play the role. She was 5 at the time. Very energetic, very outgoing, so I thought, oh, she'd be great to play this role. Little did I know. There was a scene with a homeless man with a daughter, so I used myself and my niece Esmeralda for that. For the drug dealer, I knew that I wanted somebody with a gangster look. I found this guy with long braids. He was in an Aventura music video, and he came through and auditioned for the role. I thought he did a great job. He was a really nice guy. He had a great charisma to him and that attitude. And despite being a nice guy, when he turned it on for the camera, he came across like he's really gonna kick somebody's ass.
Fuck, I think you was doing in my crib. You a fucking pussy? You won't put me fucking brains in the fucking water, man!
Natalie did not want to cooperate despite meeting Gio a few weeks earlier. We took a few pictures to put in frames around the apartment, and they hit it off pretty well. She did not feel comfortable acknowledging this guy as her father, especially with me right there, and I'm telling her, no, this is just acting, it's just pretend. We were able to get some footage of Natalie in the room by herself playing without Natalie knowing that the camera was on. The following semester I was editing the film, and that was a tough one for me to put together. By the time finals week hit, when I was supposed to be finishing up the film and finishing up that one scene at the end where they're struggling over the gun and the gun goes off, that was tough for me. As you notice, WWBD, What Would Brandon Do? My best friend Frankie, his little brother Brandon, was killed a week earlier in a similar situation to that final scene in my film where he was protecting his cousin, and I was just really depressed that week, and that was a tough scene for me to edit, and just because it hit so close to home. I was entering my 5th year at Brooklyn College. I was already pretty much done with my film. I didn't do so great in non-production classes, which would have been the core curriculum classes. I ended up skipping a lot of those and just not showing up to class, not doing the work, similar to what I was doing in high school. I failed a film studies class, which I was embarrassed by because it was gangster films, and Scarface is my favorite movie, and I never forgave myself for failing a class that Scarface was shown in, and my essay was on Scarface. So I was entering my senior year. I remember actually receiving a letter, anticipated graduation date August 2013, and this was the fall 2011 semester, and I was like, shit, I can't be here 6.5 years. I somehow managed to squeeze 2 years into 1. I took 15 credits in the fall, 6 during winter break, and 18 in the spring semester, and I graduated spring 2012. Pretty much just me busting my ass, and ironically this was probably the semester that I partied the most and I went out the most. I had a job. I was working at Equinox. I interned the spring and the fall semester. I interned at WWE in the fall, and I interned for Elsewhere Films in the spring, where I was helping work on a documentary called Citizen Coke on politics, pretty much taking a lot of the footage and transcribing all of the interviews, which wasn't the most exciting, but I actually really enjoyed it. This was pretty emotional for me because 5 years earlier, I looked April in the face and said, no, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to fail at this. I'm never going to finish. I suck at all of this. And here I was. Despite people doubting me, I was my biggest doubter, and I proved myself wrong. And I said, no, you did it. You graduated college. Not many people can say that. I had friends that I dropped out of high school and they graduated high school and went to college and never finished. I had people that told me, you're gonna fail. You're gonna be a failure because you're dropping out of high school. You're an idiot. And I graduated college.
Ronald Bosch.
Jun Padilla.
Maybe the pressure of graduating took a toll on me, where now you actually have to get a job and no more excuses. Like, it's not, oh, I don't have a degree. Now you have the degree. Now you have to go and find a job. I was still working at Equinox, making minimum wage. I was making more as a high school dropout than I am now as a college graduate. I don't know if I was expecting like, oh, once I'm out of college, ta-da, I have a job, and it didn't work that way. That fall after Hurricane Sandy, I think I reached the point where it was like I held so much in that weekend. I finally, like, I couldn't take it anymore, and I left. I went back to doing security because it was the only other thing I had experience in, and I knew I could find a job right away. As terrible as this sounds, I know for a fact they hired me for the way that I look. They had a lot of high-end clients, especially like on Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue, Michael Kors, and I think they took one look at me. They didn't care what experience I had or anything, and they said, you're hired. So I was working security at Hermes. I was there for about a year. Didn't have any benefits. I heard of a few security guards from my agency that ended up getting hired at different stores to work as full-time guards or for loss prevention. And at this point, I was just like, okay, I'm not having any luck finding anything in my field or in film or in production. So I was trying to get hired on for loss prevention. And I remember them setting up an interview for me, and everything was like good to go. The full-time guards kept pushing me to apply and apply and apply, and I did. And then out of nowhere, I was told, oh, the agency won't let us interview you due to the contract. And I always found that strange, and this is only my assumption. I was no good to them working behind the scenes. They didn't care how talented I was. They didn't care what skills I had. This was a fancy store. They wanted somebody that looked the way that I looked. Nice build. You look good in a suit. We want you to stand in front of the store. We want you to be the first person people see when they walk in. There was a job fair. I called the agency. I said, hey, look, I can't come in. They weren't happy about it. My intention was to go to the job fair and hopefully find something there. I found an ad on Craigslist. The description was kind of vague. It was like quality control for a TV network. I just applied it. Hey, I'm interested, whatever. They called me back through a temp agency. This was a temp position. It worked out that it was the same day as the job fair. So it was like, do I go to the job fair or take advantage and take this job interview and not knowing what the hell it could lead to? So I go into this agency. This is a quality control position. You're going to be watching down movies and videos and making sure like technically everything is good, everything looks good before we send it out to TV. And I was like, okay, well, sure, whatever. What is this place? It's called In Demand, and if they like you and they take you, then you're good to go. It's getting my foot in the door. My body was in constant pain. My knees were in pain from standing all day in shoes and a suit. And I remember the next day just on edge the whole day, like, oh my God, please call me back. Please hire me, please. I gotta get out of here. And finally, the next day, they called me back. They liked you and they want to hire you. The contract is for 6 months and could be extended to a year. I was like, oh my God, finally. This is in the TV field and this is better than nothing. Doing quality control, they had me in a room with all the other quality control guys. So it was pretty cool. I was watching like full movies, watching barkers, which are, I never knew what a barker was, but it was the videos that play in the corner, just making sure all the information was correct on those. I never really knew what else went on in the company because I was just in that little room doing QC. I remember a positioning opening up. It was more of an administrative position. I reached out to HR and I said, hey, it's Ron from the QC room. Would it be cool if I applied for this position? I think I was still kind of traumatized by what happened at Hermes. I interviewed for the position. I constantly was seeing people that interviewed me and it was a little awkward, especially when I was waiting for a response. So finally HR calls me in and they let me know, you didn't get this position because it was more of an administrative position, but we have an editing position open and she recommended you to the head of the production department, Melanie. Would you be interested? And I was like, duh. I was introduced to Melanie and they kind of built up this picture of Melanie in my head where it's like she's this really strict and intense person. And I met her and she couldn't be any sweeter if she tried. Despite having a decade of experience in production, I didn't really have that to show on my resume. And I remember showing her the Natalie film and some of my college stuff, like, hey, this is my work. And this position was putting together the barkers that I was QCing. So I was already coming in with the experience like, okay, hey, I know what these barkers are about. I know what they look like. I know what to look for in them. I know what mistakes can be made in them because I've reported mistakes in the past. Like, I was there and I was like, it was so close. And then I was called into HR and I was told they went with somebody else and I didn't get the job. And I was fucking heartbroken, and it was like, it was tough because I still had 3 more months left on my contract. Melanie took me around and introduced me to the entire team. It wasn't like I applied and interviewed and then never saw these people again. I was still seeing all of these people on a daily basis, and I tried to keep a good spirit. I ended up applying for another position in the company. I was doing anything I could to stay there. I think my mentality was, hey, if I can apply for one of these admin jobs and get hired full-time, then I'd be around. And I kind of just wanted to still be around Melanie. I wanted to be the first person that came to mind where it's like, oh, what about Ron? Let's give him a try. Melanie did reach out to me and said, hey, I'd like to mentor you and help you out because I really do think highly of you, but we want somebody with a little more experience. Despite not hiring me, she wanted to help me. I'd be happy to take any advice that you can give me to help me find a job. Those last few months felt like a countdown to like my last day, because I was never specifically told we could extend you past a year if we still want you, or once you hit a year, you're done. I thought that's how it worked. And my year was up in October. I always had a negative outlook on everything, where I was like, oh, with my luck, they're probably gonna fire me on my birthday on October 8th. It was my birthday, I was working, and HR calls me in. I was kind of dreading it because I was like, okay, I know my year is about to be up in the next week or so. I was like, they're probably gonna tell me like, hey, we enjoyed having you here, we would love to keep you on, but due to the contract, we have to end your year now. And I think because I had developed that relationship with HR, and she was always sweet to me, I thought she was gonna find the nicest way possible to let me down, as she did in the past when I didn't get the previous positions. I go in there and she says one of the editors is leaving, and Melanie would like to know if you're interested. And yes, I would love to work here. I've been trying for the last 5 months to get a job here. And she didn't even know it was my birthday, and I was like, this is the best birthday gift ever. It was my 28th birthday, and I remember like running back to my desk and emailing Melanie like, thank you so much, you just made my day. Like I was like not even looking forward to this birthday because I thought I was gonna lose my job. I just remember going in the bathroom and just like, oh my god, finally I'm gonna be editing, I'm gonna be doing what I love. April's family was going to take me out to dinner that night. They were going to take Natalie and I out to dinner. And I remember not wanting to tell her, but I was so excited that I kind of slipped and I said, oh my god, I have good news to tell you tonight. And she kind of kept pushing me to tell her, like, what is it? What is it? And I kind of bullshitted and I said, they extended my temp job until I can find something. I remember at dinner, I was there with Natalie, April, her mother. It was like, these were like the 3 people that have helped me the most and inspired me the most during this time. And I kind of set it up where it was like, oh, I had this job and my time is up. They're hiring me full time as an editor. And it was like the longest 2.5 years of my life. I felt so hopeless for such a long time. I reached a point where I was like, I'm never gonna get anything. I'm never gonna accomplish this. I'm never gonna get a job editing or producing or doing what I love. When I lost my job at Rec Youth, I felt that I deserved it. I was at a point where it was like, okay, I graduated 2.5 years ago, and I am to blame for a lot of that. I didn't take advantage of my time in college, networking and interning and building those relationships that would have helped me outside of college. So this angel in the form of Melanie was sent to me to take a risk with me, and it's like, she saw how I handled not getting the job the first time around, and she saw that I was still interested and I was still passionate. And I was still willing to learn and willing to take any advice I can just to make it happen. I couldn't wait to tell everybody. Like, it was like when I celebrated my birthday that year, it was like, I'm actually celebrating something and I'm not just like drinking and partying for the fuck of it because that's my birthday, it's Boshtober or whatever. Like, when I had it with Rec Youth, I didn't feel like I worked for it as hard as I did. And it's like, I had nothing. I was at the bottom. 2014 was the worst year of my life. What I went through that year, for it to finally pay off on my birthday of all days, to finally get what I wanted and what I needed. Yes, I did it. I fucking did it. And I already felt like I was a part of the team for a few months, and I shared an office with Jess, who was another great influence on me and had the experience, and also Cuban, and I feel like she kind of became like a big sister to me, where it was like, not even so much as far as production, but just as far as like as a person and as a great friend, and I was able to come to her with situations that I was going through. So at that time I began editing the Barkers for Time Warner Cable, and I did that for a year, and I was also editing the movie collections that were in the Barkers, which were a lot of fun because I was able to be creative as far as like putting them together and picking out the music and having my vision, and seeing my work on TV for the first time was a huge deal for me, and like showing my grandma and showing Natalie. The position opened up for an associate producer editor, and I was an assistant. It was editing the event spots, which would have been UFC, WWE, boxing, which was the stuff that I was already familiar with. Also Spanish stuff, which I was bilingual, so I was able to take over a lot of the stuff that Jess was doing. Once again, my birthday came around. I was already there for a year, and I was promoted. I think the toughest part of that was splitting from Jess, where we shared an office for a year and we got so close. We were kind of like dreading and not talking to each other about the split, but even though we were like 10 feet away from each other, it was still it was still tough because I started getting close to so many people at work where they were becoming like my second family. It was always tough when somebody would leave and move on to another job. It was like, I'm happy for you, but I want you to stay and hang out with me, and I'm gonna miss you. I think the toughest one was Jess. That one caught me by surprise. Even though she'd be in the same building, I remember like being really devastated about that one and like getting everybody together to sign the big Cuban flag we had in our office, where I kind of played it off like, no, I'm just gonna take it home with me, but I had everybody signing it without her seeing it, and I surprised her at her going away party, and then she broke down and she hated J-Lo, so I put this prank J-Lo picture in there first as a joke.
Yeah, you out of your
More people started leaving and growing and moving on from In Demand. I was reaching a point where I was outgrowing In Demand, and I think she sensed that my loyalty was the one thing keeping me there. And I mean, I wasn't really looking for anything. Like, I was already there going on 2.5 years. I was starting to get a lot closer to her because I was the senior editor now. I recently took over the apartment, so I was covering the rent by myself for the first time, and I was getting it done, but it was tough. It was a financial struggle, and I wasn't happy on the creative end. I just felt like everything was kind of the same thing every month. It was just like, slap a logo on this and get these voiceovers done, and it was so generic that I was getting bored with the work, and I started looking around for other jobs, but not like seriously looking. Like, I wasn't desperate to leave In Demand. I wasn't miserable yet. I was still pretty happy with Melanie and at In Demand. I didn't want to do what I did last time, where I was just applying to anything, because if I was gonna leave, I wanted it to be worth leaving Melanie for. Like, not even leaving In Demand, leaving Melanie. Memorial Day, I wake up and I get an email from LinkedIn. It was just like their generic, like, oh, this and this and this position, and it said associate producer at Music Choice. And I was like, oh, okay, I know a few people at Music Choice that left In Demand. So I reached out to one of my former co-workers and asked her, hey, do you mind if I put you down as an employee referral? I'd like to apply for this position. She was like, sure, I just left the company, but you're more than welcome to put my name. They all like me there. And this all happened so fast. It felt weird because I was happy to have this opportunity, and then he reached out to me and said, do you have any employer referrals? Right away, I reached out to Jess, and I was like, hey, Jess, do you mind if I put you down for an employee referral? I just interviewed at Music Choice. She was like, sure. And I was like, they're asking for a second one, and I know Melanie's gonna give me the best referral. And I said, I feel horrible asking her because she doesn't know that I interviewed at Music Choice, and I kind of feel like I'm betraying her. She said, ask her, she'll do it for you. I never doubted that. I knew Melanie would give me the best review possible, and she'd do it with a smile on her face. And it was tough because I remember feeling sick that whole night. Like, I had to break like the worst news in the world to Melanie, and it was tough. Like, I really dreaded it. Like, I just remember going into her office, and I think she sensed what was gonna happen. And I said, look, I interviewed at Music Choice, and they're asking for an employee referral, and she was happy for me, and she really wanted the best for me, and she's always made that clear, like, I'm gonna support you no matter what, whether it's here or not. And that afternoon they made me the offer, and it was like, hey, Melanie, they're making me the offer, it's real. It wasn't easy. I as happy as I was to move on to bigger and better things, I was sad to be leaving this place behind. That this was like the person that gave me my break. I grew so much here. I had a great going away party. I was blown away by how many people showed up for me. It was amazing. And I started at Music Choice the next week. Working at Music Choice, and it kind of inspired me to start Bosch Star Productions, which was more like I just wanted to work on projects that I wanted to work on. So first was What the Bosch Was I Thinking? Welcome to the very first episode of What the Bosch Was I Thinking, and I'm your host, Bosch. I kind of came up with this idea about 3 years ago where I wanted to look back at my old home videos and kind of just make fun of myself and do commentary and laugh at them. So that's been a lot of fun, like looking back at like the Statty Vision, Easy W days, hiding in a garbage bag and scaring people, just me like singing, dancing, bugging out. This project right here has been a big goal of mine. It's funny because over the last decade, so like I wanted to shoot a documentary on my production career when I first got like fired from Rec Youth, when I only had like 2 years of experience. And I think now is the perfect time to shoot this. It's been 15 years since I walked into Rec Youth. I walked into the rec center and started editing my EZW tapes and doing the Matrix, and this is the perfect time to chronicle like my little rise, my downfall, and making my way back up to where I am today. And I feel like At different points, if you would have told me I'd be where I am today, I would have said, no, you're full of shit. The day that I got fired from Rec Youth, if you came up to me and said, you're going to meet all these musicians and you're going to be interviewing them, I would have said, no, you're full of shit. If you would have told me this 4 years ago when I was desperate to find a job after being out of school for 2 years, when I was doing security, or when I couldn't get hired in demand as an editor, if you would have told me I'd be where I am today, I would have said, I don't believe you. I am just truly blessed that whether it was people like Corey or Melanie opening the door for me, whether it was people like April pushing me when I didn't believe in myself, whether it was Natalie inspiring me like, I gotta do it for you because you're my world right now, or whether it was just me looking in the mirror, just maybe being stubborn and not giving up on myself, where it was like, no, you've got to do this. This is what you're meant to do. This is your passion. This is your life. This is what you were brought here to do. You were brought here to produce, to edit, to be creative and get things like this done, and then work on your own projects. And like your father had his approach to video and he did it for his reasons, but you're not him. Like, okay, yeah, you're into this stuff, but that doesn't mean you're him. This is Bosch Star Productions, where it's like, I had Bosch Films years ago, and I thought that was kind of generic because I'm not really doing films, I'm producing. And Bosch Star was like, okay, I always was like the rock star of the group wherever I would hang out. It's been quite a journey. It's been 15 years. I'm 32 years old, and I was 17 when I started this, and look, I got all these fucking gray hairs. I know I'm just getting started, but I'm grateful that I failed, because it means so much more now that I am where I am today. And it wouldn't feel as good now if I didn't know what it was like to suffer all those years to be successful now.